All right, everyone, welcome back to the Rewatch. My name is Samuel,
And my name is Jayden.
and we have just put ourselves through the final two episodes of Star Wars The Acolyte. We made it all the way to the end. Thank goodness for that. Today, we're going to give you our general review of the entire series. We've suffered through it all, and we're still standing. So that's one positive we can take out of this experience.
Yes.
Your general mood when you saw that final cut to black and you realized that the Acolyte was over. What did you think?
See, it's kind of a funny way to put it, isn't it? Like, you don't say, like, the Acolyte has finished. You say, the Acolyte is finally over. Because that's how it feels. You know, you feel a sense of relief that it's done.
Yeah.
It's finally over.
The pain is over. We've reached the end of a painful journey.
Yeah, and that's my thoughts just generally are that I am grateful it's over. I mean, every episode's just been horrific. You can have people say that episode 5 was all right. Oh God, could you imagine 5 seasons? But yeah, I mean, every single episode was just atrocious. Given some were better, some were worse, but they were all bad.
Yeah. So we've obviously reviewed the show already. We took a break halfway through. We watched 4 episodes, did a sort of mid-season review, you could say. Our general complaints, well, we had a lot of complaints. In fact, I don't think we had any non-complaints. But I guess to summarize, we would say that the characters lacked any sort of distinction or motives that made sense.
Mm-hmm.
The acting was bad, the visuals was bad, the music was bad, the direction was terrible. Did you see any improvement in any particular areas? Did it get better or did it get worse as it sort of went on in those final episodes?
It got worse. Like it did. It got so much worse. Like episode 7, was particularly bad. Like particularly rough.
Episode 7 being the episode where we revisit
Yes.
episode 3. So
Yes.
we revisit because this whole show has been based around a few short events that happened 16 years ago on Brandok. And so we revisit that moment again because obviously we saw a bit about it in episode 3.
Yep.
We saw it from a different perspective.
Yep.
And that different perspective added absolutely nothing new except a few moments where we see Sol stab Anasay or whatever her name is.
Yeah.
So that was the worst episode, in your opinion?
Yeah, that was like by far the worst episode. And I mean, it sort of goes hand in hand with episode 3 because they're essentially the same episode. I think we definitely picked up a few times that there was literally scenes picked out from episode 3 and placed in episode 7 just to be used as like filler to, keep the thing going to get to these essential plot points that they think are essential, which is Sol killing the mother. So, yeah, I mean, episode 7 was particularly bad, but episode 8 as well, I mean, it was a stinker, man. Like, it had some bad...
The finales in the Disney Plus Star Wars shows are never great.
They're never good.
The only good one was like Mando Season 2, where Luke showed up.
And we're not just talking about Star Wars. Like, we're talking about Marvel as well, which has just had like an awful run of TV shows. But, I mean, that's a whole discussion for another day.
For me, I wasn't angry watching this show in the sense that when I was watching the Obi-Wan series, or when I was watching whatever Star Wars things are offensive. Boba Fett, yeah, that's right.
Or Mando Season 3.
Yeah, I skipped that one. even when I watch the sequels, I become angry when I watch those because it's taking things that we love and destroying them
Yeah.
and retroactively sort of degrading the franchise. For me, I didn't feel that watching The Acolyte because it's obviously somewhat original. Like it's all these characters involved.
Yep.
Obviously, there are some cameos that we'll perhaps touch on later, but all of these new characters are terrible. And I don't care because I don't like the characters anyway. Like, I don't have a pre-existing relationship with the characters. So I will say that this was quite fun to watch because I had no expectations. I knew it would be bad from the moment it was announced.
Yeah.
It was terrible. And it was
no good expectations. You had expectations.
Yes. So
They were
I had
bad expectations.
It didn't have any positive expectations for sure.
Yeah.
And so it's been quite funny to watch it sort of just become this embarrassment of a show. But when I was watching Obi-Wan Kenobi week to week, I was livid because they were destroying a character that we know and love. Both Obi-Wan and Darth Vader. So. But for me, the one thing that did make me angry about The Acolyte, and it's something that we've seen in all of these Disney Plus shows, whether it be Marvel or Star Wars, is this insistence on setting up a mystery that's not terribly interesting. Like, that's not interesting at all.
Yeah.
And they reveal it in the second last episode, sometimes even the last episode, and it's not revealed in any way that adds anything to the story.
Yeah.
It's merely just something for audiences to go, oh, we got to keep watching because I need to find out what happened to those space witches on Brandok. I need to find out what happened. But the question is why? Why do we need to find out what happened? There's no why. There's nothing interesting about how they die. We find out that Soul kills them. In my opinion, watching the show from an objective standpoint, he was in the right to do so. So wow, big mystery. And what was the point of the show? It's been building up this mystery. Well, I say building up, not really, but
that's the critical error. Is it's like we just don't care, and that's the main problem with the show. And I hate to say it because there's going to be people out there that say, okay, you can't form an opinion that is essentially just a we don't care premise, but they made it so difficult to actually find any interest or any, latch on to anything with these characters. But I have to take it back to when you said that you weren't particularly offended with the show. I get where you're coming from, but this show goes so heavily against what Star Wars is. Like, you have the whole Kiari Mundi incident, which I sound like a broken record talking about.
That was offensive. I did forget about that.
Yeah. There's
because
so
he didn't appear in any other episodes, did he?
No, it was literally just a thing to, rile up fans. But
that's right.
This series, and spoiler alert.
Yeah, let's talk about the cameos.
The Plagueis incident and the Yoda incident.
Yeah. I guess for me, it's so unsurprising what they did with Yoda and with Plagueis in that final episode. And I said in our mid-season review, there will be cameos in the last episode because there always is. That's the formula.
Yeah.
Whether it's Ahsoka or Boba Fett or Mandalorian season 1, 2, 3, whatever.
It's a product.
There's always a cameo at the end so that fans can go, oh, wow, I guess next season's going to be really interesting because we're going to see Plagueis, we're going to see Yoda. No, you're not.
The thing is, we're not going to see.
No, you're not.
No.
If Acolyte gets a second season, is it going to be about Plagueis? No, of course it's not. It's going to be about Osha and May.
And the funniest thing is like some of their TV shows, right? They've had these cameos in some of their TV shows. Like, you had Boba Fett cameoed in Mandalorian season 2, and that had some, or it might have been season 1, that had some sort of purpose to it, right? Like, it led into the whole...
Like, he was actually involved with the Mandalorian going on missions.
Yep. But what was the purpose of Plagueis in this episode? Like, what did he actually...
From a narrative standpoint.
What did he actually do? Like, he added absolutely nothing
You
to the
could
scene.
take him out and it would make no difference.
It'd be the exact same.
And you could also take Yoda out and it would be no different.
Yep. And that's the main issue with this show, is like, they're not thinking about story. They're thinking about what the fans, like, they're thinking about creating these fake relationships to bring in these social media fans. That's such a funny term, by the way. They're thinking about
the reaction videos.
They're
oh my gosh, it's Plagueis. Oh my gosh, it's Plagueis. Yes, but what about why? Why is Plagueis here? In fact, I ask you this: why is the Acolyte?
That's such a good question. Why?
Why? So Leslie Headland has obviously created this story.
Yep.
For a purpose.
Yep.
You know, one day she woke up and she thought to herself, I've got an idea for a story about two sisters, and that's about where I lose it. Like, what was it about apart from the two sisters? Because the characters, I found it so difficult to understand what these characters were thinking, what their motives were, what the conflict was, what their relationships with other characters were, because they were constantly changing. People were changing sides. I mean, the robot Pip changed teams at one stage. Basil the rat is changing sides like a madman. The tracker that we need for our tracker. I mean, we can laugh at the terrible dialogue and stuff, and the terrible visuals, the overuse of the volume, the terrible line delivery, people not knowing how to speak English, all of this stuff. But it all comes back to what is the point?
The crux of it is like, what is the point? And I've actually got a really good answer to your question.
Okay.
So why is the Acolyte, right? I've seen a few other people mention this, and essentially the way that Disney Star Wars has felt since maybe Rogue One, is everything is just an addition to the George Lucas canon of Star Wars. And by that I mean, like, it's not Star Wars, it's like fake Star Wars. It's sort of pretending to be Star Wars. It just really operates under this label. You know, you can call it canon, Disney can call it canon, do whatever they want, but at the end of the day, watching The Acolyte, it doesn't feel like you're watching Star Wars.
What does it feel like you're watching?
Just nothing. It's a nothing show, really. But what I mean by that is, like, it can have people appear from Star Wars in it. You know, it can have Yoda, it can have Plagueis, it can have whoever they want in it. But at the end of the day, I mean, yeah, you're telling, like, an original story, but I mean, what the hell is this, man? Like, it's not Star Wars.
I wouldn't know how to summarize the plot of this, because it's so difficult. So what I can gather is there was two sisters. They're the same person. One starts off as a good person. One is an evil person.
Yep.
And their family were killed under suspicious circumstances. One of them joins the Order. One of them becomes Sith. Not a Sith, becomes Sith. And at some stage, they cross paths, and then they switch roles.
Yep.
They hate each other because of what happened to their family. But then they actually abandon their separate missions because they realize that their love is more important than that, except then they reverse on that. And then I think I lose it about there, because I honestly can't tell the difference between both of the characters. They have the same hairstyle. The acting is the exact same from the actress.
Yep.
So it's so difficult to tell which one is which.
Yep.
May has a tattoo on her head that is concealed for the entire show, except for maybe the first episode.
And guess who has a tattoo on their arm that's never shown?
The other one.
The other one.
Yeah. So what was the point of that? Simple change. Hairstyle. One of them has a different hairstyle. Or, in fact, maybe one of them has a different personality because they don't know each other. The show seems to think that because they're supposedly the same person, they would act in the same way, but that's not how life works. And Leslie Headland obviously hasn't understood that, because you can take two similar people and give them separate lives, separate stories, separate journeys, and they will turn into two different people. That's just the way life is. We're all a product of our surroundings and what happens, but that's thinking about the characters. Thinking about, okay, how will these characters navigate their circuit? No, there's no thought about that.
But essentially, I think what they were trying to push at the end of, in the finale, is that these two people are sort of operating under this one hive mind. Like, they're really this one person. But it's so flawed, because...
But then they wipe the mind of the other one.
So you would think that the other one would get mind wiped, and you would think that, like...
You would think that the other one would give a toss about the other one, so she wouldn't want to have her mind wiped, and instead just bring her along in their adventure. I mean, the Sith just said that he wants the freedom to do whatever he wants. Maybe he wants two apprentices instead of one. Why would he be opposed to that? Why is Ezra Miller suddenly a stickler for the rules when his whole perspective, supposedly, why he left the Jedi Order was to be free from those rules.
Yeah. So,
meanwhile, Plagueis is chilling on their island.
Yeah.
And is seemingly not in contact with Ezra Miller.
Like, was it meant to be like a sort of ghost of the past, or like was he even really there? And I mean, it's just these. That's the fault with the show, is that there's questions that just aren't answered. And that's...
In fact, it's only questions.
It's only questions. It's only questions. And it's the same sort of mystery box thing that they did with The Rise of Skywalker and The Last Jedi and The Force Awakens. They throw up a bunch of questions.
And Ahsoka. And
they just throw
whenever there's a masked character, ooh, who's under the mask? Who's under the mask? Oh, it's just a puff of smoke. Or it's just Ezra Miller. Or it's just Taskmaster, except she's a woman. It's just
because that's what Disney loves doing. They love mystery. They love intrigue. It's cheap. It keeps people watching. They love their weekly release seasons. It's
$180 million.
Yeah, I mean, that's just insane, isn't it? Like,
I mean, that's a full budget movie.
That's a full budget movie. That's Top Gun. That's half of Indiana Jones. It's just ridiculous at this point. Where do they just give up? Where do they say, hey, we're not going to do this anymore because it's not profitable?
Just before we go, Dave Filoni approved this. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think he's a fraud, or do you think...
I think
he just wasn't paying attention?
No, I think...
Or he just looked at this and went, you know what? I don't even know where to start. Just release it.
I think Dave Filoni's been a fraud since the Book of Boba Fett. People have said, like, oh, he wasn't in charge, or... He doesn't have the creative powers like Kathleen Kennedy. Absolute rubbish, man. Come on. Like, there's...
Well, he's now the chief creative officer. So he's now the second.
It's well documented out there that Dave Filoni has the power to issue and to deny requests in relation to creative decisions. He was all over the press tours and... everything associated with the Acolyte, like, he has put his face on this.
Meanwhile, Jon Favreau has left the building.
I mean...
He left the building after Boba Fett,
Another Jon Favreau W, right? Like,
he got out while he could, I think. Because we have not seen a single thing from him.
But I think
he has disappeared.
He might be returning for the movie. I'm not sure whether...
But,
I mean, is the movie even going to happen?
No,
like,
of course not.
It's just so...
But, so Dave Filoni's a fraud.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I wouldn't call him a fraud. I would call him maybe hypocritical.
He's, like, past his expiry date.
Yes, for sure.
Just like Star Wars as a franchise, I think.
Yeah.
The Acolyte Season 2, will you be tuning in? If it happens?
I don't think there's going to be an Acolyte Season 2, but, I mean, hey, I didn't even think there was going to be an Acolyte Season 1, so...
Yeah, that's it.
But if there is... Yeah, we'll tune in.
Yes.
And we'll enjoy...
And we will cover it.
And we will cover it. You'll come back here in 2 years' time. We'll be talking about the Acolyte.
Spend 2 years. Imagine spending 2 years making that making that.
Is that how long they took on it?
Well, that's usually the standard, isn't it? Like,
I mean,
because
it feels like it was made in like a week, but
yeah. Well, you have a few months shooting it, and then you got to take into account obviously the script writing,
and those
which
ugly
obviously
reshoots.
took, script writing for this probably took maybe 2 hours.
Yeah.
At that,
At best.
But then obviously shooting it and then editing it, which well, to be fair, they didn't really edit this show. So look, score out of 10. We started off mid-season review was a 0 out of 10.
It's a 0.
It's
It's a 0. I'm sorry, but there is usually stuff in films and in TV shows where I can say,
you can point to.
They did all right there.
Even something like The Last Jedi.
Yep.
You can point to it and say, look, that
Yoda scene was all right.
That visual was nice. That cinematic flair there was nice.
Yeah.
That performance was good.
Yep.
Can't say anything about that.
No, genuinely nothing I liked in the show. Yeah. 0.
0 out of 10. 0 out of 10 across the board.
Yep.
We'll leave it there. So thanks so much for tuning in. We're going to have a few more videos coming out about the Acolyte, so stay tuned for those. And until then, we'll see you next time.
See you next time.